Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence, please.
Before you
Sure.
ask for your moment of silence, I just want to recognize the passing of Rocky Hempel. Rocky served on our Leavenworth Planning and Zoning Board. He also served as a Tonganoxie City Council member. He's also, before that, he was served on the City of Oskaloosa Council, and he's also the mayor of Oskaloosa. The man was a true public servant. He's going to be missed. Everything he done was 110%. I mean, he'd show up at his meetings with his papers and his agenda packet. They were always highlighted and marked up and sticky notes.
He's always ready, yeah.
He's going to be hard to replace.
Yeah.
And I just, want a moment of silence and prayers out to his family.
Absolutely, absolutely. I miss seeing him in the back of the room.
Yeah, that is kind of tough.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll start with the moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. Start roll call. Start with Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
I'm here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
And I want to welcome everybody here that's watching or will be watching. With that, we'll go to public comment. I don't think there was any, Mark, from what I was told. Not, we'll go to administrative business. Mark?
I don't have anything under administrative business today.
Okay. Commissioners, anybody have anything?
I got one thing. Apologize in advance if this takes too much time.
Oh, you're not. Go ahead.
But it's on the spec building program from the Port Authority. I know we received an email last week that we got on that, and I had sat through a city council meeting where there was a presentation and I'd encourage all of you to watch that presentation. And about 18 to 20 minutes in there, it was said that the county commission had pledged money whenever this building was built to $50,000, and I believe now they're asking for $58,000.
Yeah.
And it said we have since changed our position and are not going to give the money, and the spec building program's in jeopardy. Did we agree to give that money? And if we did, we need to give it.
That's why I asked it last week. Remember, I went back and said, wait a second, was there any indication, because I was told that too, Doug, you bring up a good point. Did we say we were going to do that, or did we say we'd look at it when it came around? I don't know.
I can't find anything that shows that that would be a motion and a second and a vote, that kind of money.
Yeah.
But if there's a record out there that we agreed to do that, then we need to honor that. But if not, they need to change their presentation that the Board of County Commissioners have decided not to do this now.
Yeah.
After the building was built.
What year would that have been if they're saying that?
I think the spec program building's only the spec building program has only been in existence since 2018, I believe.
Yeah, I was the mayor
sometime
then.
in the last
Yeah.
3 or 4 years. I don't recall a presentation to the board where they asked you to vote to fund the program. I don't recall that, and I've been here since then. So.
I remember telling the Port Authority and the LCDC members that if you had a project that we're always open to you bringing it and presenting it to the Board of County Commissioners, but I don't remember us ever binding ourselves.
Well, I don't either. But if there's, and I've looked, I can't find anything, so I challenge anybody to come up with something, because if it's out there, we need to honor it. That's all there is to it. But if it's not, I don't like sitting through meetings where
We got a huge thing. Yeah. Doug, you raised one I asked last week. I want to say, did we, because I was the mayor in Lansing when the spec building took part in 18. I went through a couple of presentations, but I wasn't on the county then. But they've made it, a couple of the people have said that the county promised that, but I can't find it anywhere. My understanding was we'll bring it back to you as we get down the road. And I know Mike and I made it very clear at that committee meeting we had that anytime they wanted to bring something back to us, we'd entertain at least a discussion on any items they would have. But I'm with Doug. If we did promise that, we got to honor it.
And I agree, but I think can you go back through our minutes in the last 3 years and see if there's anything in there?
There's not.
You've already done that. Okay, well, I mean, then that needs to be corrected by someone.
I'm not saying I didn't miss it. I'm just, another set of eyes is fine.
I think that there just seems to be like an inference that has been assumed. I think there's, and that can be I had to leave the Zoom meeting early yesterday because I had another meeting that backed, and there was some discussion. Apparently, Bill said after I had to leave that meeting, but I did make a commitment for all of us to meet with the Port Authority in a work session so that we could kind of iron this out, to have a discussion, to try to, figure out what happened, how it happened, why it happened, what can be done to rectify the situation or resolve the issue in a way that kind of
I agree.
mends some fences and move forward for the future of the program, because I think that there's something needs to be done to address the miscommunication that did occur, because obviously something along the way led the Port Authority to believe that there was an understanding and the County Commission to believe there was no such understanding, and we need to kind of try to figure that out, because there's definitely not a meeting of the minds, and when that occurs, it's not good for anyone, because, and so I think that we just need to kind of iron that out. So I would appreciate if we could get that put on the schedule so that we can have a meeting and talk it through. 2018 is a long time ago. There were members that were not even on the Board of County Commissioners at that time. And then I think that even members of the Port Authority weren't even members of the Port Authority at that time. So because, the representatives of the Port Authority are fairly new, because we assigned new members to the Port Authority. We redid the structure of the Port Authority. So I think that it would be a good time for all of us to sit down and kind of discuss. And then the spec building, and then, just the whole program and everything, because I think that there are exciting things happening within our county. And I think that the discussion happened because of a building that was being looked at and is being built in Baser right now, that was being discussed at the Baser Council meeting at the time. And so I think that there's a lot that could be kind of worked out.
Go ahead, Mike.
And this kind of gets down to what the task force that we were on was drilling down to some of those issues. And one of the things that we had requested the Board of County Commissioners, and even boards of county commissioners before us, was that we have an economic development strategy and kind of a comprehensive plan for economic development. And that's why we brought Tom Cole on. So I think having a work session with Tom, with the Port Authority, with members of the LCDC would be great, because we're trying to get everybody on the same page and figuring out what each entity's responsibilities are in economic development. And I think probably some of this issue goes on to the issue of communication and how we, or lack thereof, and that's what we're trying to, with our new economic development administrator, we're trying to get to where we're all on the same page and we're all communicating and not having debates in the newspaper over spec building program.
Well, that's kind of my concern, because since I've been here, how many millions of dollars? I mean, just $10 million went to the industrial parks alone. So I feel like I did my part.
Well, my 2 cents on this is I agree, and this is just me speaking, I agree. If this was said we would do it back in 2018, I'd support it. If they're wanting money now, coming to us when we're trying to save funding, I believe a couple of weeks ago, by cutting out certain projects, something like that, that money needs to stay with the county and the county projects. Now, do I think we should have a discussion about this and, put this out where we know exactly where we're going to get in the future as the times get better? I totally agree with that, and I think we're session. In fact, a couple of them have mentioned that in the last few months also about having a work session with us to sit down and go over some stuff. I think the thing we have to be careful with, and I think this is what might have happened, and I wasn't here, and I know we can't find amends, is we encourage people to come back up here and talk to the county commissioners about projects they have, and then the county commissioners as a whole will decide on that. And sometimes that may have been thinking it was a given. I think it was nobody to blame. I think it's just a communication problem that we probably could resolve in a work session.
Okay, I'm good with that. After the budget, you think we could do this after the budget? Because we got to get this budget over.
Yeah.
Or do we need to do it for the budget?
Well, I guess that depends on whether or not the Board of County Commissioners is intending on funding the $58,000 request. That definitely is something that I think you'd want to include in your budget.
And I think maybe we
But
need
that
to
would
do it.
require that an amendment to the mill levy that we've already put out, well, we haven't put it out, we haven't announced the public hearing yet. But the 24th of August is our public hearing. You cannot adjust the mill levy up after we send out the notice of public hearing, which will happen in the next couple of weeks.
It's going to have to be after the budget.
I'm not comfortable doing it before. I think we got our hands full. I do want to support them in things down the line, and spec building's one of them. But I'd like us to get through this budget first. This is tough enough as it is.
Yeah.
My opinion only.
Okay.
Mike?
We'll do it after the budget.
Yeah, I'm good with your opinion.
Yeah.
Vicki, you okay with that?
That's fine. I just want to get something done so that we
I agree.
can fix this, because I think that even if we're just making it to where an inference indicates that that's something that we're going to do, and that people are thinking that in an informal setting that is a go ahead, we can't have that being that implication that that's
I
what.
agree.
Well, that kind of money's good. I think it requires some signatures.
Well, I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like,
But I wanna get
we're
all
not
of it
in the
worked
days
out.
of a handshake is a handshake type thing. I'm just saying that we need to make sure that that's not what people are thinking. That
And and I think Vicki brings a good point. I think in future things we can be, we're trying to be up here and work with everybody and be nice guys and gals, but if we just make it very clear that when we have something like this come along, this isn't a promise for the future. This is what we're saying, so we can have that marked down on this date, saying we approve this, but if you want to do anything else, you have to bring that before us. So please don't think that's part
County
of it.
commissioners act as a board, not as individuals.
Yeah.
We cannot make promises as an individual. We can only commit to things as a board. We can only make promises as a board. We can only, commit to things as a board of county commissioners. When we are in a meeting, when we have opened a meeting, not when we are informally having discussions with community members, when we are formally in, meetings and things, we can only make commitments when we have a vote to commit to anything. We cannot commit to anything as individual county commissioners.
That's why I'd like anybody else to do some research. I could have missed something. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Commissioners, maybe it's important, because not everybody here probably understands what this discussion is about, that the spec building program for the MAPS organization that's going in out there is what this was in reference to. The Port Authority provided a 0% interest loan of $200,000 towards the construction of that building. That money is county money. Obviously, the county funds the Port Authority. So the $200,000 that has been given and committed by the Port Authority really was county funds. And now they've put a request in that we help to restock their funds basically with the $58,000, and that's the request that you're referencing.
Right.
And so that, just so there's a little background, because not everybody's necessarily aware of that.
And for further little background, can you kind of elaborate on what the cash reserves that you understand that Port Authority and LCDC have?
Well, I think their last financial statement showed that they have somewhere around $700,000 in their account right now, but I'm not sure if that includes this $200,000 that they just gave for this program or not. If it did, then they would have around $500,000 in their account. That's the Port Authority.
So in other words, there's some
I haven't
resources.
seen the LCDC's financials this month. I didn't.
So anyway, and it all needs to be talked about, and the bottom line is we're trying to get everybody on the same page on economic development, Port Authority, LCDC, county commissioners, and all the cities.
Yeah. Jeff, did you have something on this?
I was just going to say the point I've been trying to get across to especially these outside agencies is if they have cash reserves they're saving for a rainy day, brother, it is pouring outside. So it's time to use that money.
Very well said.
I hope you're right. I hope we do get the rainy day.
Okay. Anything else on that, Doug?
No, sir. I
No, that's all right.
Take some time because I really think we need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I agree.
And if we can set something up right after the budget, it'd be great.
Yeah, I agree. Any other commissioner? Okay. We'll go to the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be pulled? If not,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
motion and second. Any discussion? Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
I did have a discussion.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
back up. Okay.
Too late. You had said that we said to postpone that meeting.
Yeah, I think that's the letter said.
Just cancel that.
Did it say cancel?
Cancellation, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that's all.
that's this was my understanding of what they sent out.
No,
So do we need to amend the?
no,
I don't think so.
Okay.
Commissioner Culberson?
it says it both in the minutes.
Okay, then
Um,
motion stands. Aye.
Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Stephen? Very good. Okay, formal board action. Consider a motion to approve Board Order 2022-4, a disaster relief tax abatement for buildings destroyed by the May 28, 2019 tornado and 3 homes destroyed by fire as identified by the county appraiser. Morning.
Morning.
We're asking request for board action and approval of disaster relief for tax abatement. There's 8 buildings or 8 properties that had buildings destroyed by the May 28th tornado. These will be applied as tax credits to the 2022 tax year. And this is made available by the legislation that was passed, making it retroactive to go back and do abatements on the outbuildings, where before it was only the homes that could be abated. And then we have 3 other that were, one was destroyed by fire in 2021, and 2 that were destroyed by fire in 2022. The one in 2022 will be abatements. The other one in 2021, and taxes were paid, so it'll be a tax credit against the 2022 taxes. Any questions? Or
Commissioners, anything?
So these are tax credits. You're not going to cut a check, or they'll
no,
just get a credit.
they'll
just
come
have
off
credit?
their tax bill for 2022.
Okay.
We'll put an order in for 2022.
All right.
Do you anticipate any additional? How long do they have to get additional requests?
By law, it's the tax day, December 20th. I had requested when I sent out the letter they get them by August so we could make the adjustment to the tax bills before they go out. But by law, they have until.
Till December.
Any other questions?
Yes, our FEMA money will offset this.
We hope.
Okay, there's no other comments. I'll take, please can I get a motion?
Commissioner Leary.
Move to approve Board Order 2022-4, disaster relief tax abatement for buildings destroyed by the May 28, 2019 tornado and 3 homes destroyed by fires identified by the county appraiser.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any more discussion?
Just one point of
Go ahead,
discussion. It took 3 years, and and bipartisan. Everybody was for it, but it still took 3 years. And when we're talking about these tax things, and so many people are talking about all the how taxes are done in Topeka.
3 years for something that was common sense and really simple.
Right. So when we get to trying to change the valuation system and all that, imagine that process, how long that's going to take. But we got to push for that too. But this is really wonderful for these folks.
Yeah.
It is. And you know what'd be better? We got our FEMA money for that disaster.
I hope we do.
In my lifetime, anyway. Okay.
No, it isn't. But I'm
It's,
like you. It's frustrating that something like this took so long to get passed.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
It is.
And I would like to give credit to, it actually came down to the end of the session, and it hadn't gotten through the committees, and Senator Karen Tyson was the chair of the Taxation Committee in the Senate Taxation and Assessment Committee, and when she was on the conference committee, she went out of her way to attach this to the conference report. It wouldn't have happened without her efforts, so I have to give credit to Senator Karen Tyson.
I'm glad somebody picked it up and ran with it. Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, we got a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, presentations and discussions, I guess we'll sit right there with you.
Next, Bob.
Quarter report.
Yeah.
Morning. We, so far this year is expected 2,313 parcels. We begin inspecting after hearings, and we certify values, and that's in May. So it's been out there for a little while. We still got a ways to go on our maintenance reinspection. Every 2 years we're required to do a full review of our agricultural use. We got crop, got it classified right as crop, grass, that sort of thing. In the past, we have done, there's 3 ways you can do that. You can do it with aerial photos, comparing old photos to new photos. You can do it with questionnaires, by mailing questionnaires, but then you have to do a physical inspection on the ones you don't get returned, or you can do it by physical inspection. We haven't done a physical inspection for a while, and so we decided to do a physical inspection this year. It's going to take us longer to do. It's going to be harder to accomplish. While doing that, we really are making some changes based on what is the way the state of Kansas says we should classify waste. Leavenworth County has classified quite a bit of waste ground in the past, and it does go against what Property Valuation Division has directed. This has been since 1989 when we went through appraisal. It's been classified like this.
I have a question for you. How many acres in Leavenworth County are classified as wasteland?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
What is the definition of wasteland? Something that's just...
Well, it's not supposed to be anything that's if it's in grass, it's not supposed to be waste. If surrounding properties, grass is not supposed to be waste. It's not supposed to be large chunks. It's only supposed to be small areas of ground. So if you have large areas, and I got a couple examples, that is supposed to be classified as native grass with a canopy cover influence versus waste, which is $10 an acre is waste. I've got some examples here, and nothing, basically almost nothing in grass. If it's in grass, it's not supposed to be classified as waste at all. We have some memos on that. And currently, no county around us classifies it this way. We won't be able to find any county that we didn't look at all the Kansas counties. It's an issue in eastern Kansas here more than it is in a lot of other parts of Kansas. The canopy cover. So, if you look at the example on page 4, that is a parcel that has a total of 435 acres. Now, I picked some very high, extreme ones here. It's 435 total acres. It has 308 acres in waste. The total valuation for that parcel, 2022 values, is $100,000 even. If you take that out of waste and put it into grass with a canopy cover influence, native grass, the valuation would rise to $115,430. So it would rise $15,000 on that $100,000. The second one I have there is another parcel that's in grass. It's 138 total acres, and it has 74 and a half acres in waste currently. And this is, specifically what they say is not supposed to be considered waste at all. And its current valuation, because it's in grass, is quite a bit lower. $8,490 is the current valuation. 2022, and using 2022 values, classifying that ground as native grass with canopy cover influence would change it to about $12,200. That's the difference. And these are parcels. A lot of parcels, it's a lot less. I tried to pull 2 parcels that had quite a bit of waste on them. That's the valuation difference. There will still be some waste. You have farm ground along Stranger Creek. The creek would be in waste, that sort of thing. But that is the kind of thing that they say should be waste, not these big areas.
So, question on that: how many property owners are affected by the reclassifying?
I don't know that at this time. I could see who we all got waste and run a report.
So if your property line's on the other side of a creek, then the creek is considered that acreage amount that the creek takes up, or is it land along there that's in the floodplain?
Well, a lot of the floodplain is farmed,
Right.
So you can't call that waste. It's not currently called waste.
We'll call it green space.
But if it's got canopy cover or something, that's currently considered waste. Usually those are really small, thin strips.
Well, there's about 7,000 ag parcels, 6,500 roughly.
There, yeah, about 7.
And I'd say 70% of those have waste on them, roughly.
Mostly small amounts. It would be.
So there's your number, Mike, roughly. 70% at 6,500 would be affected.
It won't, overall valuation, a total valuation, it won't make a huge, agricultural land makes up 2% of our total valuation. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be
But what percentage would you use for canopy cover? Are you going to adjust it for each one, or just use a flat percentage?
Well, there's 3 you can use. We're basically using 2. It's 50% and 80%, with a lot of this heavy stuff going in 50%.
So 80% canopy cover, you're right back to about $10 an acre. So there's really no difference in value.
Sorry.
All right.
When I say 50%, that's
Good.
good.
Oh, the opposite.
So
Okay. So
that would be
50%.
20% off the 80%.
What's the average native grass land now? $80 an acre.
Yeah, a lot of it's
70.
70s, but some goes up to 120.
Okay. So an average
It just
of
depends
90.
on the soil type. On this one, we have some at 137.
So an average of
That's
$90.
the fair end.
50%, 45. So you're talking about $45 an acre versus $10 an acre. It's a lot of work to do to make $35 difference. Yeah.
Every time we go to the Board of Tax Bills, they remind us we're not in compliance with their. No county around here does this way. We were really looking at what other counties are doing and what the PVD directives and guidance tell us
Yeah.
we should do.
And what I look at is the labor-intensive time it's going to take to do this. You're talking about a 100,000th of a mil difference. I mean, it's not going to make any noticeable difference whatsoever.
And it's going to cost a fortune.
So,
One question I had was the aerial, as opposed to the physical inspection. The aerial seems to be, you're sort of physical, but when you're saying physical inspection, you're actually getting someone out on the property itself.
That's correct.
And tell me kind of what are some different things you're finding when you physically go as opposed to looking at it from an airplane view.
Well, I mean, in the aerial inspection, you're comparing a aerial photo from 2 years ago to the aerial now, and you're trying to discern differences. And it's okay, but it's not always, there's pluses and minuses to both these approaches. In the physical inspection, we look at the aerial photo. We go out on the ground with the aerial photo, and we make sure that the aerial photo represents what's there. And then we delineate on the aerial photo what is, crop, what is grass, what is, waste. It'll be, this canopy cover will be a separate layer on the GIS, so you'll be able to see, what is in canopy cover from the map, and then it goes in. So it's somebody on the ground looking to make sure, and sometimes, so you can see, sometimes something looks like, depending on the time of year the aerial photo is taken, it may look like grass, but it may actually be crop. Sometimes you can make that mistake, or you don't catch a change from the aerial photo, so you're on the ground, you can see what's actually there at the time of inspection.
and it's easy to see the difference between cropland and grassland in an aerial photo, but it's impossible to tell the difference between fescue, brome, and clover hayfields from an aerial photo, which are three completely different classifications. So is it every 6 years you go out physically?
Well, we have to be at every property every 6 years. We have to verify ag use
Every year. But
every 2 years.
but the physical inspection, yeah.
Okay.
I have it in there, sales, for the first 6 months of 2022 compared to the first 6 months of 2021, the percent of increase. And this is just average sale price. So you can kind of see that the market's still very strong for properties. This just kind of gives an idea of what sale prices are doing. So counting total is 14%. You look at Baser, it's large at 20%. Keep in mind when your average sale prices, you are assuming that the mix of properties is the same from one year to the other. And this year we've had quite a few new homes, expensive new homes in Baser sales, so that may be influencing that up a little bit for that big increase. The second, and we looked at properties that sold twice in between, within a 3-year period. So we use 2020 through 2022, and what's the percentage change between the first sale and the second sale? We try to eliminate anything that had any changes, if they finished the basement, if they remodeled the house, we try to eliminate all those in between them, eliminate those out. So we're just getting down to, what is the increase, the annual increase indicating for us what the sale price is. And that shows a 15%. That's over that 3-year period. We could look at 2 years, but the data gets a little thin, especially when we're only halfway through this year. Just to use 2 years worth of data. And you can see most everything is pretty close to that county average. When I break it out by city, it's pretty close to that county average. So there you see for Baser 16% versus the 20% up above. Number of building permits are down slightly, down some this year from last year. That's just for new homes only I have there. Then the last item I put in there is the sales ratio. This, again, compares what homes are selling for in 2022. So for the first 6 months of this year compared to our 2022 value. And you can see county total, we're at 89%. So again, we got 10% either way, so 90% is usually the bottom of where we're at. And so we went up 15%, but we're still barely there. Any questions?
Any questions?
It's obvious why people want to move to Leavenworth County. It's a good investment. I mean, what bank wouldn't want to loan money?
Gotta get your money
Leavenworth
back.
County,
Yeah.
when you have these kind of increases
Yep.
in investments.
Well, I think this last paragraph of information is probably the most important that he's presenting to us. What it's saying is the county appraiser's office, if I'm correct, is only appraising all the properties in Leavenworth County at about 90% of what they're actually selling for.
Mm-hmm.
So when your value goes up, the 15%, he's still only at 90% of what comparable houses are actually selling for.
Yep.
The
It doesn't
very
give you
minimum the
leeway
state
for the
allows.
next year.
The very minimum the state allows you to be legal.
And how often does the state, like for your office, come and like evaluate whether you're measuring up to this ratio? I mean, how do they keep track of that?
They track it every year. They do the same thing, only they do it separately. They verify all the sales throughout the year, and every year they do an assessment sales ratio study as part of our substantial compliance. Now, last quarterly report, I presented a lot of the procedural stuff we have to do. We have to submit all that documentation to the state. That's 50% of our compliance, whether we're in compliance or not, compliance report. And the sales ratio that they do is the other 50% of our compliance report. So if we fall out on the sales ratio, we're not going to be in compliance.
And just for, I think it's worth talking about this, is just for, we as the Board of County Commissioners, we appoint you to be the county appraiser. But the rules and regulations and procedures that you must follow are completely dictated by the state of Kansas Board of Valuation, I forget the
Property
name.
Valuation.
Property Valuation Division. You comply with that. We do not have the authority as a Board of County Commissioners to deviate from those rules.
Correct. We're required by law to follow the directives and procedures of the Director of Property Valuation Division.
Right.
And we do
And we're
not.
also required to follow the uniform standards of appraisal practice too, also. So.
And we do not have authority as a Board of County Commissioners to decide what the valuations are for the county. It is totally according to the numbers and the sales data and the information that you collect, that's how the numbers are assigned, and that's what you present to us.
That's correct. Sales equal market value.
That's not what it says on Facebook.
Okay.
So wouldn't it be a lot easier? You're talking a lot of staff at the state level to check every county, all these sales. It sure be a lot easier if you just paid property tax on what you paid for your house, and then it went up with the rate of inflation instead of doing all these comparables every year.
The problem
The mill levy
is
would have to be twice as
the
high.
Kansas Constitution requires the legislature to have an equal and uniform basis, and that basis is market value, with the exception of agricultural land. Not all property rises at the same rate.
Mm-hmm.
And in that system, you'll have some property at market value and some property not at market value. And so you'll have an unequal assessment of tax between properties. And that is the whole purpose of us doing, is not to generate more value, it's to keep at market value, so therefore we are keeping properties in relationship with each other overall, over the whole broad spectrum of, they're all paying their fair share of taxes. What the share is of the total tax dollars in Leavenworth County that everybody's paying, their proper share in market value is used at. And if you're not at sale prices, you're not at market value. If you don't use sale prices to measure where you're at some other value other than market value.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I really appreciate the hits you take and the hard work you do like that. And this isn't directed at you, but I just believe it's time for them to look at a different way to evaluate this with these property tags. When you're getting hit with all these percentages and you can't even budget, they're going higher and lower. And I think that's where Doug was going. And I don't mean to speak out of turn for you. I think there's got to be a better way for the representatives that we have in Topeka that can figure out a better formula to set these so they don't skyrocket and go down. And I know that's what we have to pay our bills. Jeff's educated me on that, on what we have and how we have to pay the property tax. But there's just got to be a better way to do this.
Well, the local ad valorem tax would help if it got refunded, because it is for property tax relief. So if we could get
and that's probably the reason it was started, to get it back, yeah. But I think I see more legislators being asked these questions, and we have to continue doing that, because I think they can figure something out. And I'm with them in demand transfers. Totally agree with that. And if we do something, we have to abide by it, especially if it's law.
And what I've heard a lot of people talking about is the fact that Kansas allows these spikes. We have these massive, that would be allowed. It seems like the spikes, it seems like our legislators ought to be able to do something about in 1 year your property taxes went up 27%. Maybe there should be a restriction on how it spikes.
From 2008 through 2015, some of them went down. Some of them went up, just stayed the same. I mean, most of them stayed. Property values really didn't rise at all in that time period, but then they started to rise after that.
Yeah, well, within the time I've been on the commission, the last 3 years, they've really gone up.
Bob can't fix that. So.
No, that's what I'm saying. Bob, you do a
That's-
fantastic job.
But I just think educating people on the fact that the county doesn't control this, it's a state issue, and I think we can, with a letter of support or that kind of thing, when we meet with the legislators, let them know this is really an issue.
I think the last year it's been getting out more, but we need to continue. Yeah. Anything else for Bob? Bob, is that it?
That's all I have.
Sir, I appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
You've got a hard job.
He does. Information systems. You get to go ahead of Jamie. Come on down. We're saying Jamie for the last. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Larry.
Hi. So I'll start by going over the ARPA-related projects. Multi-form authentication has been implemented completely per what we had intended to do. Now we're expanding on that and going toward workstation logons. You might have seen some emails about that in the last week or so from the IS department. It's been received very popular with the employees, I must say. We only have 200 and some odd of them yet to enroll, so we have to figure out a way to get these folks to actually do it, or when the time comes that we go live, they simply will not be able to log into their computers. That will cause them a great deal of discomfort. So we're trying to encourage enrollment. We're pushing, and I'm going to push harder in the following week, and then the week after that I'm going to push even harder, and then eventually we're just going to have to throw the switch and let the chips fall where they may, or we will never implement workstation multi-form authentication. So hopefully everybody will get on board before we get to that point, but at some point you might hear some grumbling. Mark will probably hear it long before anybody else, but we may just have to do it. And
Well, I'm sure we can get that information out a little quicker than what you're saying. Hopefully, might bring to people's attention, including
I'm hoping
myself.
so too.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a good security project, though. We're really looking forward to finishing that so we don't even have to talk about it anymore.
Right.
The fiber optic cable, that started a week and a half ago. They began out by EMS and Health Department, Eisenhower Road and Hughes. They've been heading north. They're now cruising down past St. Mary's, headed toward Limit Street. Had a meeting last Thursday for a status update. Everything's been going swimmingly for them, so they're making great progress. They're going to be hitting houses in the next week, though, so it'll probably slow down a little bit when they start bumping into more people. But so far, everything's going smooth. The wireless network, the access points are supposed to arrive later this month. We've already done all the drops except for a couple that have been problematic. We're getting those taken care of. So that should probably be implemented in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Firewall replacement, that's in the middle of that process. We've got the equipment, working on the configurations. The biggest obstacle there is finding the smoothest way to transition from the existing firewalls to the new ones, because it's going to basically down everything. And we got the 24/7 Jamie's folks, and of course the sheriff's office and dispatch and all that. So we're trying to find a way to do as much testing beforehand so that we can try to hedge our bets that we can get a transition as quickly as possible, maybe an hour or less of having the firewalls actually down as we transition to the new ones. So we're working on that with the contractor. Everything's going well. It's just one of those things that we're not looking forward to the cutover time, because it's disruptive and we'll have people angry at us. Server virtualization, the hardware has arrived yesterday, so that should be starting with the contractor very soon. We're still trying to make sure everything arrived. So that's all the ARPA projects. The only other item I wanted to bring up was the issues we've been having with utilities over the last couple of months. You may have heard and seen some of the problems we had with HVAC and then power. You know how the courthouse tends to lose power all the time, little blinks. Our UPS down there, the 20 kilovolt one, had apparently decided not to provide battery service anymore, and that created a great deal of difficulty down there. We went to a bunch of smaller UPSs, so we think we've gotten around that, and they put in a second HVAC unit. It seems to be holding its own right now, so hopefully we're out of that. It was a nightmare, but the biggest problem we're having is the supply chain thing. Just getting a UPS, getting a switch, getting anything as being miserable. When the fiber's done, we need to light it up. And just trying to find a few switches so I can get that lit up as soon as possible. We're talking 300 days wait time for the type of switches we wanted. That's unacceptable. So we're trying to find other equipment that will do what we need, but it's not exactly what we wanted. We're having to make concessions because of the supply channel problem, and I really hate doing that, because I'd much rather pick the exact equipment we want. But we have to get these services fired up so that Council on Aging can move, and anybody else that's going down there. I think you got some other folks that might be relying on our connectivity. But we got to get all that stuff lit up. So with the fiber going well, I understand Council on Aging plans to move in September, October. Well, technically, I imagine they'll move whenever it's ready and has connectivity. They want to get there as soon as possible. So we want to be able to turn up the fiber as soon as it's done, so that we're not delaying their relocation and anything else that you've got pending for that facility. So if you guys can do a board order that will make the supply channel problem go away, I would very much appreciate it. Is that a possibility, maybe?
Oh, we can make an order.
Yeah, I've seen Jeff do all kinds of rough orders over here.
A strongly worded letter, perhaps, that can make this go away.
And where would we send that to?
Yeah, China. Doing it good.
Is this China?
Anything you might be able to do would be appreciated. Anyway, that's
Get
all.
lost in the mail.
That's all that I wanted to bring up to you. I'll answer any questions you might have.
I'll make a trip.
Go over there and see if you can bring back a few switches.
Straighten them out.
I'll go visit.
Will it be the last time we see Vicki?
Where's
We
Vicky?
see her on the news. They want to make a trade. Okay, any other comments, questions? I think it's.
I'm not going to say anything.
I probably took it too
I'm
far.
going to be nice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnwell.
Jamie, good morning.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Preference on which report we go first?
I got one in each hand.
Let's have at it.
All right. We can start with EMS. Pretty much standard report that I do every month or every quarter to you. Start with the budget. We are in line with budget, no extraordinary expenses. Outside of, we did have an HVAC compressor for our headquarters station go down, and I'm working with Aaron on that. It's going to be about a $4,000 to $5,000 expense. The main compressor for the air conditioning there failed during the heat wave, so they're not only out in trucks and they come back to a station that's awfully hot. The only air conditioning that they have right at the moment is in their bedrooms, so they're kind of hibernating in the bedrooms when they come back. So we're working to get that, and again, that's also an issue just because of supply chain. So it just seems everything that you need nowadays is on back order or extended periods of time to get anything. So we're working through that. Revenue is a fluctuation, obviously, off of transported patients, and as you can see, transported patients is down a little bit from previous years, but we are on the rebound, kind of that pre-COVID time frame. So next couple pages in the report are simple statistics that we have in there. Again, vehicle maintenance, we're running well with vehicle maintenance. However, I just want to kind of outline, as I have there in number 4 for updates, the 2022 ambulance. We were notified there's 82 to 84 weeks to get a truck from the time we order for an ambulance. So I did meet with Mark, and I kind of brought it up with the board on the last. We were able to order and secure with pricing for our 2023 and 2024 ambulance and put those on to get them into the
Good move.
Because again, if we wait, we're just going to be 2026, 2027 before we're getting a 2024 ambulance that we should have received on a yearly basis. So to keep us going and receiving at least our minimum 1 ambulance per year to get our rotation through, we did go ahead and put those orders in, moving through. The other kind of big items just to kind of talk about, we did promote our lieutenant, Matt Butke, longtime county resident and paramedic with us for 6 years. He was promoted to the lieutenant position, so we're excited to have him aboard as a lieutenant with us. Staffing, it was funny, we were discussing staffing, I think, at the employee picnic, and the following week, staffing plummeted. We had several leave and such, so we were at good staffing, and then all of a sudden we kind of took a turn. The advantage, just this week, we did go on to a pretty aggressive recruitment process. We were able to secure 2 paramedic applications and 2 EMTs that we've interviewed and potentially going to offer. So we're in the process of backfilling, but we're going to have that kind of lull of training and such. So hopefully we'll get back up to staff. We have some good policies and things that we're going to do out there to try to help with this transition until we can get full staffing again. So not the greatest time during the heat wave and such to have low staffing, but everybody out there is kind of pitching in, staff included, admin, everybody. We're kind of looking at staff and trucks and how we're going to get through this. But hopefully here in a couple weeks we'll know if we have these paramedics that are going to come on. That'll help pretty much get us back to covering what we need on a day-to-day basis. So other than that, we're getting ready for the fair next week. We will have presence out at the fair the entire time, especially that we're in the heat and such. So we do also put our operations manager out there as kind of the medical control, medical command out there, as well as we have the process of staffing 1 truck out there and then have the ability to get more trucks back in if we need to backfill and actually take somebody out. So that's standard every year, but we're getting ready for that as well. Any questions on the EMS side?
I have one.
Go ahead, Jim.
So you might not know this off the top of your head, but do you know roughly how many EMS calls you do to Fort Leavenworth annually?
I don't have the exact, but it's not many. I mean, we're out of our total call volume. You're looking at maybe 100 probably 100 of those 6,000 were up there, 150 maybe were up to Fort Leavenworth in the first 6 months.
And so they don't have an ambulance service, they use you guys. And I noticed in your budget, I didn't see any compensation from Fort Leavenworth for EMS services. Did I miss something there? So as I said before, it's raining outside. And not only do these departments probably need to use their reserves for a rainy day, I think we need to start looking at
You do bill
Source
for
of
TRICARE,
income.
I mean, or
Correct.
you do bill for
Yeah,
that service,
those that
though.
we
You do get,
transport off of the
Okay.
fort, we bill for service, and that's how
There's reimbursement.
our user fee
Okay.
revenue works. So
Right.
if we
Okay.
bill for service, and one of the advantages is TRICARE is a payer. And
Okay.
they pay pretty much full of what we
Right.
bill.
So every call up
There is
there
a
is
bill.
covered
Right,
from
it
the
is
insurance
covered.
company. Okay.
Unless we
Yeah.
go up there and it's a non-transport, then again, we don't bill.
Okay.
our
Locally
social
for that,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Okay, because what I was getting at
Yeah,
was
that's
we
a
need
good
to
point
start
there,
looking
Jack.
at services.
Yeah.
no, but there is, I mean, I was just
Reimbursements
saying,
for
there is
different
compensation for the
Okay.
transport.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
I think
good.
to Commissioner Culbertson's point, though, the fee doesn't 100% fund the service.
Right.
It's close, but it doesn't complete. I mean, we have a building, we have and some of the stuff that's not covered. So the taxpayers of the county do pay a levy that goes towards emergency medical services, but the fort doesn't. So I think to your point, Commissioner Culbertson, that it wouldn't be inappropriate if they would agree to pay a fee to offset their share of that. But it'd be very minimal.
And that's what
based
I'm
on-
looking at. Is it's probably not going to be a lot, but I'm just trying to find sources of other income that's been overlooked over the years that maybe it's time to say, hey, this is just fair.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
less than, what you say, like 100 calls out of your total call volume.
As I said, about
So-
150 probably of those 6,000 calls total was probably a full
Maybe 2% or something like that. So if let's say there's a 4 of our mills go to EMS, 2/10 of that would be minimal. You're talking probably 20,000 a year, something like that.
Okay.
How would
All
you
right.
implement that kind of a fee?
You'd have to negotiate something with them. I mean,
It'd be a payment in lieu of taxes, Commissioner.
And
You know, when you do things like that, though, you got to look at the big picture. And not just talking about the post, Jeff, you bring up a good thing, is what are other communities giving us, or that they could, that we're working together on, that it's a kind of even swap. But I do think it's time, if possible, that all of us start looking at, the fair share of things is a true statement. People need to help pay the bills and be fair about what we're treating and charging everybody else. So I understand where you're coming from, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scrape every corner for every
Yeah.
penny we can get. So.
Yeah. And be fair about it. Okay. Anything else on this one?
Kind of ironic, when Leavenworth County first started the ambulance service, they had to move out the week of the fair because that's where they were. They were stationed down there in the fair building.
Yeah.
So it came a long way since the 70s.
I
We were
remember
just
that. Like what we said.
discussing how far we've come just the other day with some new hires.
Yeah.
All positive. Go ahead, Jamie.
All right, moving on to Health Department, same thing. The expenditures within the budget, we're right kind of where we need to be. Revenue is down a little bit, but again, we're still recuperating and kind of coming back to in-service and in-person out there for a lot of the clinics and things that have been pushed off or delayed that we weren't able to do because of COVID. So some of that hopefully will start coming back as it's no longer being done telephonically or we're actually able to open up clinics to full Monday through Friday. So hopefully that'll turn around a little bit for us and we'll start moving in user fee collections. Grants, we're right on target with grants and what we need to be receiving. Obviously, in that is not our last payment. As you can see, we just completed the fiscal year. We're on state fiscal year. So our last payment of last grant, which is the largest kind of follow-up payment, comes in kind of July and such. So that's kind of looking at grants just at the mid-year doesn't give you the full picture of what we'll receive. Statistics, again, we're recovering on that. WIC is starting to have clients coming back in. They've opened that back to where, which I'm glad. That was all being done remotely. We're now having those, moms and babies coming back in and being seen in person in our clinic again. So that's a plus there. We still have the ELC grant, and now that we're in July, the next kind of phase, this is what we use to upgrade all of our computers and a lot of the infrastructure out there at the health department. One of the big ones is going to be completely revamping all of our radio system. That was the original radios that we received from the counties first. This will allow us to upgrade all of our radios out there, and we use that on a daily basis. We use that pretty significantly during the COVID time as well. I'm also going to look to get all the tables and chairs out at the conference room out there at the health department, so to get all of that kind of summed up with that funding as well, so it won't cost the county anything. The last item kind of on page 2 is my clinical manager had to step away and resign last month for health reasons. There was some pretty significant health reasons that no longer could work and such, so she had to step away, which is disappointing. However, kind of the good with the bad, we were able to promote Tiffany McIntosh, whose husband also works for me on the EMS side, so they're county employee, live in the county, everything else. I was able to promote her up pretty quickly and get her into that position. We're getting her up and running, and she's doing a fabulous job so far that she has over the last couple of weeks. So she's worked for us for about 6 years, kind of on and off on that way. She went to school and came back and back and forth, and now she's with us full time. Pretty excited to be in that position. So that's a plus. The only position that I have open out at the health department is still a public health nurse, which is going to be pretty difficult to fill during these times, just because healthcare in general is looking for nurses and doctors and
everywhere
and everything else, and obviously bonuses and salaries are all over the place, so it's going to be a pretty difficult, but we are still on the search. Once in a while we'll get an applicant in and it may not fit and such, but we're doing okay with the staff that we have out there currently, and we're just still on the look for that. So we're on page 3, COVID update. The first week in July, the county went back by CDC guidance. COVID numbers are up. The advantage to that is hospitalizations are kind of just trending with that. It's not going out of the park. A lot of these COVIDs are lasting to 3 to 4 days, and they're recovering. Those that are ill and sick that are going to the hospital, it's kind of going as the number goes up, so it's kind of that, it's with it. It's not a spike of cases going up and they're all going to the hospital. It's kind of trending with it. We are up over 200 cases, though, per week is what we're seeing in Leavenworth County. And it's still kind of trending up on that. We haven't plateaued yet. It's kind of still going. We were kind of expecting that, especially during the 4th of July holidays, a lot of groupings, a lot of festivals, and all of those type of things are happening. So we're still offering vaccine every Thursday. We haven't come off of that and changed anything. It's still pretty receptive. Just this last Thursday, we did about 100, and I want to say 150, 170, somewhere in that range of vaccine. So those clinics are still fairly busy, consistent, week to week. So we're still offering that. And again, FDA is looking at actually opening up booster for all ages here soon. So we may have another little, influx of people that want to come back in and get a booster that haven't been in that over 50 range or immunocompromised. So looking at that, we will be having next month a audit from the state over our immunization program. They come in and they look at everything to do with immunizations. That's a pretty big deal, so we're preparing for that. Been working with the state, make sure all of our documentation, all of our, lack of a better term, ducks are in a row. I'm very confident that we will be successful through the audit, but that's coming. Last item, Mark reached out and wanted me to start looking into the health assessments again for the county. So I have reached out to our vendor that has provided that in the past. I I haven't got a whole lot of feedback yet, other than that company kind of switched gears a little bit and they went into COVID testing. That was kind of what, a lot of health assessments weren't being done, so they had to figure out where they could fit. So they're in their trend and transition back also on trying to go back. So if they can't do it, then there's some other companies out that I've already identified that can. But if we can get the same company back in, that's an advantage, because your records that you did for those past couple of years, you'll be able to earmark back as well. And when they send that back, it kind of gives you what your trends are. So giving them kind of the first option to see if they're available. If they're not, then I'll go the second route, and I'll come back to the board as to what we can do. But again, that's a big undertaking to try to get that all together and try to get that in. It'll probably be a late fall, winter time frame that I'll be able to get that in and get that all set up.
I think there was recently in Baser at a church held is that the same company?
That was a different company. There's several, and they did also one up here, I think at the BFW. Mm-hmm. There's a few in the Kansas City Metro that also do them. So again, there will be some options, but again, we receive, because we've done it so many times, kind of that cost back to us was kind of a bulk cost versus what some of these others that are out. So we got a little bit on the cheaper side than what I looked at, what Baser and the BFW was charging for those.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Hear all good things.
Thanks, Jamie. Okay, next one is an executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board recess for a closed executive meeting for the discussion of pending litigation involving the legal interest of the county as justified by KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with legal counsel for the board, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, and that the board resume the meeting at 10:30. In the meeting room of the board. Present in the executive session will be Commissioner Culverson Cause, Commissioner Mike Smith, Doug Smith, and Commissioner Stevens. Senior County Counselor David Van Perrys, and County Administrator Mark Lawfrey.
Second?
Motion and second. Commissioner Culverson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cause?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Okay.
Let the record show the board has returned to regular session at 10:30. No action was taken. No decisions were made. The subject was limited to legal interest of the county.
All righty. Okay. I'm going to go to additional public comment. Mark's walked out of here, so Jeff, we'll start with you today.
I didn't have anything really other than we did the Council on Aging benefit and the initial count. They haven't tallied it completely yet, but they made about $20,000.
Great.
Awesome.
That's good.
So
That's great.
yeah, that helps
Was
pay
it
for the
band,
move.
wasn't
And I don't know about
That
that,
drummer.
but that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
and the sponsors especially. So
Yes, thank you.
It was.
as hot as it was,
Yeah, it was
had
hot
a good
too, wasn't
turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Thank you.
And Port Authority and the Adult Advisory Community Corrections Board yesterday, and I think that's, and the City Commission meeting last evening. I think that's it.
Check off that list. I got to speak at the International Students Day yesterday. Over 121 international students. That's always a fun thing to do. I also got to speak. The Lansing Lions brought in a group from Mongolia on how they do their justice center, and there was 6 people. They flew in for a week in the United States, and they needed an interpreter. I was one of the spokesmen there. It was just fascinating. But to have somebody interpret standing right beside you all the time was always interesting. But it was a great group to talk to, and I really enjoyed that. And then last night I attended. Well, first of all, Jeff still got his voice. He can still do Bachman Turner Overdrive anytime. But last night I attended a fire district board meeting in Lansing. It went very well. I think a lot of things were very productive. That's all I have. Doug?
Just Bayshore City Council last week, and also the Council on Aging fundraiser. You could always tell when Jeff was singing because the songs were old enough for him.
That's what I like.
But I thought the other members of the band were too young to know them songs.
That's pretty much it.
It was a really good turnout. I thought for as hot as it was.
It was hot.
And the goal was to raise funds, and I think it's
It
very
did.
successful.
Yeah, 20,000, wow. Okay, anything else, Doug?
No, sir.
Mike?
Well, the main thing this week, I did meet with our economic development administrator and visited with him about the battery plant there that they're going to be bringing into DeSoto, and he provided me with some information that he had. He doesn't have. There seems to be interestingly enough, there seems to be a lack of information right now. We're trying to still gather more information about it. So in the future, hopefully near future, we'll be able to provide the public with more information about what this will mean.
Yeah, it's not in our county, but we'll probably see some overflow.
I would think so.
They might need a lot of sand, too.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it.
Mark, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Can you get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Mr. Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
Do I want to take a couple minutes before we go into the...
2.
Okay.
Sure.
Go right ahead. We'll take 5.